Greetings to you all and welcome to the Data Armory. Today we are going to study about variable rules and guidelines. Variable names, rules and guidelines, and we'll also look at Python keywords and built-in functions. And at the end of this study, you should be able to know the importance of variable names, rules and guidelines. You should be able to use the rules and guidelines, and you should be able to have an understanding of Python keywords and built-in functions. Python keywords and built-in functions. So we have to agree, all of us, and we have to understand if you are a beginner and you want to understand more about variable names. Already we have a part 1 of this whereby we explained what are variables and how to write variable names. Look at that link at the top there, and you can see the first part of this video. The second part is a continuation, is an extension of the first part. So see the link up there. So we have to agree that variable names are an essential part of the source code, and meaningful names are important when it comes to program comprehension. So already that gives you a hint that variable names, rules and guidelines are a key part because of the comprehension that we need to have when we read a program, or that when we read a program, because we know very well that most of the time you will use to read other people's code, and other people will also use a good chunk of their time to read your code. So it has to be a code or a program that is comprehensible or that is well understood. So when you talk about variable names, they serve as an implied documentation that should convey to the reader these two things. They are more than this, but in this we have just captured this, is that they serve, when you talk about variable names, they serve as an implied documentation that should convey to the reader the meaning of the code. Using the variable names that you use, they should be able to convey what is the meaning of the code. Number 2, they should be able to show the intention of the writer. So when someone reads your code, by looking at the variable names, they should get the meaning of the code, and they should also know what is the intention of the writer. Now, considering that sometimes names are the only documentation, then clean code approach should be highly regarded. Clean code approach should be highly regarded, and you have given the reason why. Therefore, it is important to devote a considerable amount of time to the issue of variable naming, and therefore variable names and rules. Now, what are the variable names and rules that you are going to look at here? Variable names, rules. What are the variable names rules? What are the rules that you should consider when writing variable names? Remember, we have got rules and we have guidelines. Now, when you break a rule, you'll definitely get an error. When you break a rule, you'll definitely get an error. And then the guidelines are there to help us write clean code. Now, a variable name can be one word. That is the first rule. A variable name can be one word. For example, we can write student. That is the variable name. Then that is the assignment of operator. Then this is the value. We talked about this in the last part. So we have used one word, student, and the name is Ken. Let us see the output. Now the output is Ken. Now another rule is that you should separate words with underscores and not spaces. Now when you have decided to use more than one word, and remember the importance of using more than one word is that the code will be more comprehensible. It will be more understandable when you use more than one word than when you use one word. Does not mean that you cannot use one word, and it is not cast in stone that you must use one word. But if you see one word will not be able to make your code more understandable, or will not make your code more comprehensible, then it's important to use more than one word. And when you use more than one word, remember, you should separate the words with underscores and not spaces. So here we used one word. Let us improve that variable name. So we said student. We can use more than one word and say student name is Ken. And you can now see this variable name, it makes more sense than just this one word. So student name there is Ken. Let us see the output. So we print student name. To understand this, just go back to the first part where we talk about variables. Now, another rule is this. Now, let us try and separate it with a space. Let us try and separate it with a space and see what happens. So, student name is, let us use another name. this should be we get an error as an invalid syntax. Let us try and separate it with a hyphen and see what happens. Cannot assign to operator. Remember, when you are writing Python code, this minus sign, it's an operator. It's a minus. It's a minus, so it cannot assign to operator. So when you use it here, it brings a different meaning. Again, when naming variables, we should only use alphanumeric characters, to mean that we should use letters and numbers and the underscore character. We have already said that. So when naming variables, we should use alphanumeric characters, letters and numbers only. So student, let's take for example, it is student 1. Student 1, the name is Mary. Student 1, we have used the underscore separate. We have used here a letter, and we have used a number. That's another rule that you should consider. You should always use letters and numbers. We'll also try and break that rule and see what happens. So that has we have got the output. Let us say we say student X. Student, we use the asterisk sign, and the student here is Carol. To see what it brings. Invalid syntax. So here, this rule is that when naming variables, we should only use alphanumeric characters, letters and numbers, and the underscore character. So when you are using characters, the underscore character, we are allowed to use the underscore character. Now, another rule is that you should not start a variable name with a number, but can start with a letter or an underscore. And when you break this rule, breaking this rule will give you an invalid decimal, literal, or syntax error. You can go and check out what that means. So you should not start a variable name with a number, but can start with a letter or an underscore character. So student 1, we have already seen student 1 separating the letter and the number with an underscore. It worked and it gave an output. Let us try to reverse it and say first student, for instance, and here the name is Henry. Let us see. We are trying to, you should not start a variable name with a number, but can start with a letter or an underscore character. But here we have started with a number. Let us see what happens. It gives us invalid decimal literal. Just one way of debugging our code is that you copy paste this, go to a browser and paste it there. You copy this and go to a browser and paste it there, and you'll see what this means, or an explanation of what this means, but we'll get to that in another tutorial. So you should start a variable name with a number. You should not start a variable name with a number, but can start with a letter or an underscore character. Now let us see if we start with an underscore character, because here we have started with a letter. If we start with an underscore character, that is the underscore student. Let us see if this will run. No, let us just leave that as it was. Let us open another cell. We start with an underscore student. Then John. Let us see if this will run. It runs without giving an error. So it should be student. So there we go. So it's okay. So is that we can start with an underscore, and we should not start a variable name with a number. Now let us go to another rule, is that a variable name should start with a letter or the underscore character. Is this a repetition? A variable name should start with a letter or the underscore character. This is a repetition. You should not use Python keywords and function as variable names. You should not use Python keywords and functions as names. When you talk about Python keywords and functions, let us look at some of them that should not be used. For example, here, if you go to this W3 Schools, www.w3schools.com, where they talk about Python keywords. These are some of the Python keywords that you should not use as variable names. The AND keyword, and these are logical operator, as, assert, break, class, continue, def, delete, elif, else. So you should not use these are reserved Python keywords that you should not use as variable names. For example, let us try and see. For example, here there is a student who was passed, and we want to use pass as a variable name, and the student who was passed is called John. The student who was passed is called John. Let us see what happens. Invalid. Why? Because we have used a reserved keyword. So it's important to try. It is important to try. So let us just repeat that. Let us try and use the name pass. Pass. These are reserved keyword. Pass. Then here is John. Then we run that. So we see that we get a syntax error. We get a syntax error, invalid syntax, because we have used a reserved keyword. We have used a reserved keyword. So you should not use Python keywords and functions. So just go to this site and any other site and look at some of these reserved keywords that we should not use as variable names. Look at them. Also, we have been told that we should not use built-in functions. It is not good to use built-in functions as variable names. Now, built-in functions, the Python interpreter has a number of functions and types built into it that are always available. They are listed here in alphabetical order. So these are the built-in functions. It is not good practice to use them as variable names. It's not good practice to use them as variable names. These are in the Python documentation. You can go and have a look. docs.python.org. You can go and have a look at some of these built-in functions and Python keywords also. We continue. Variable names are case sensitive. This is another good practice that we should put into mind when writing variable names, is that variable names are case sensitive. For example, message, lowercase message, message with capital M at the start and capital, and these camel case are different. For example, if we say here message, if the variable name is message and the value is come here, then and the variable name here is message, where we capitalize the first word, and we say welcome home. Then we have another message which is capitalized. Message is this is the data armory. Then we have a camel case, which is should be message is thank you for watching. So we see here that variable names are case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. So let us see what the output of this will be. We begin with message. What will be the output? Message, it prints come here, and because this variable name is the same but has a different case, let us see what it will give. Should be message. Someone would expect that it will take the value of the first one, but that is not the case because they are different. It prints welcome home. What about this message? Again, we see it is different than the last one. Let us see the output. So we see it is different. So according to this rule, we have seen that variable names are case sensitive. What is in this variable name is different from what is stored here, is different from what is stored here, and is different from the value that is stored here, because variable names are case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. Now, when we continue, it says ensure that variable names are short, though they can be long. So ensure that variable names are short, though they can be long. This is another good practice when writing your code. Descriptive, that it can tell what the variable is used for. And we say this at the beginning, that they are descriptive. That is, they can tell what the variable name is used for. For example, if I was doing a data analysis on weather on a weather data, it will be good practice to, for example, read in the data as weather df for data frame. Let us say, for example, the weather was for Australia. It is good practice to write it as weather df. So when someone sees this variable name, they can be able to understand that these data. Let's take, for example, it was Australia. This is just an example. They can be able to know that this data frame has got weather data. Compare that to when I name this weather data as just as data. This Australia weather data. If I name it just as data, which one can be able to tell what the variable is used for? This one is more telling than just naming it as data. So weather data. If I'm working with sports data, it will be important to name it as sports data and not just data, or maybe not just sports. It will be important to for example, if I'm using pandas, to name it as sports data frame and such like. So that is important. Take note that some letters like lowercase l and uppercase O can easily be confused with number 1 and 0. This is another important thing. That take note that some letters like lowercase l and uppercase O can easily be confused with 1 and 0 when someone is reading your code. Also, it's important to note that while it is legal to use uppercase letters, others think it is a good idea to start variable names with lowercase letters. Others believe that they better use camel case than separate names with underscore. Others avoid starting variable names with an underscore unless they are writing library code. So there are different preferences for different programmers, as long as these preferences do not go against the rules and the guidelines for writing clean code. Also, it's important you go and read this. We should be doing much of this next time about PEP8 style, PEP8. You can say PEP8 or PEP8 style guide for Python functions and variable names. And if you read these documents, these are documents that was written on some of the rules that someone should follow when they want to write clean code. This paper 8 is important. You go to the Python documentation and read it. And the functions and variable names, it's written here that function names should be lowercase with words separated by underscores as necessary to improve readability. Again, we see that readability is a keyword that keeps coming up again. Readability. Variable names follow the same convention as function names. Mixed case is allowed only in contexts where that's already the prevailing style, e.g. threading.py, to retain backwards compatibility. And we have seen when you are looking at these rules and guidelines that there are some people who have different preferences when it comes to writing variable names. But as long as these preferences do not go against the rules, because when these preferences go against the rules, you will definitely get an error. So I believe that by now you are able to tell the importance of variable names, rules and guidelines. You are able to use the rules and guidelines, and you at least know Python keywords and built-in functions. You should also try and keep them in remembrance time and again by going through the references that we have in this notebook. That has been our tutorial today. You have a blessed day. We meet next time. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to comment and give your feedback so that we can know what we should be doing next or where we should be able to clarify more. Have a good day.